This simple setup mistake could be causing you lower back pain. When you've been practicing at the driving range, having your lessons, or when you're walking off the course after 18 holes, if you're feeling your lower back is sore, particularly here at the top of the pelvis, you may be falling into this trap. Let's take a look at what could be causing this lower back pain. So I've got my 9-iron. I'm going to set up down the line so this is a little bit easier to see. I'm setting up to the ball here. Now, one of the most common mistakes and simple things to fix that I see a lot of clients and a lot of golfers make is the way they set up to the ball. So they're going to put the club to the ball here and they end up sticking their butt out like this. So tilting the lower back and the tailbone is sticking out. Now, quite often this comes from misinterpretation of tuition. Not blaming any golf coaches whatsoever here. But traditionally, as golfers, at setup, we're always taught to stick our butt out. But from a physical perspective, people interpret this in the wrong way. What they end up doing is exactly what I've just shown you. They end up sticking their butt out like this. Now I'm heavily exaggerating so you can see it. It creates a dip in the lower spine, and this is called an anterior tilt of the pelvis. This is where my belt buckle would tip lower to the ground and my tailbone would curve and tilt up towards the ceiling. From a physical perspective, what that is doing is compressing the bones that are at the bottom of the lower spine here. And it's contracting the musculature really tight in that area as the pelvis tilts forwards. So every time you set up to the ball in this position, we are replicating this motion over and over again. So the lower back, the tissues, the bones and the structures are under a lot of pressure because of that pelvic tilt. So if you're set up to the ball with that tailbone sticking out in that anterior tilt of the pelvis, with the dip or the S posture of the lower back, as it's called, you can see why over a period of time, like 100 balls at the range, 18 holes with your mates, would give you some aches and pains by the time you've finished. Those structures are under a lot of tension, a lot of pressure, and they can't relax. So what we're going to do is give you an exercise to put you in more of a neutral position to help relax that area. I've got a couple of gadgets, a chair and a foam roller. In an ideal world, this would be like a bench or a firmer surface, but this is all I've got available for this particular video. Again, your foam roller, you can use any other objects that you've got. A rolled up towel, quite thick, a head cover, something you can grip between the thighs that you can put a little bit of pressure on. So firstly, I'm going to have a seat. And we're going to pop the heels onto the chair here. So it's really important that you have the heel on your chair, on your bench or your table, whatever you're using, and not the calf like this. We want to recruit some hamstrings, so in order to do that, we have to have heel contact. I'm going to shuffle my bum in, so I'm roughly around about 90 degrees here. Obviously, this mat's quite small, so when you're at home or in the gym, you're going to have a lot more space than this. I'm going to take my foam roller, and this goes directly between my thighs. Not on my knee joints, not on the bone up here, in between the thighs where you can grip it. Now, if 10 out of 10 was maximum pressure, you're going to grip this foam roller about 5 or 6 out of 10. So enough for it to stay where it is, but you're not giving it a death grip really tight. Also, with the heel contact here on the shoes, the toes and your feet must stay straight. So we can't have the toes falling out like this. We don't want them rolling inwards, and we don't want to be losing heel contact. It's really important you keep those angles, you're pedantic about it, because that helps maintain this 90-degree angle. So from here, I'm just going to lie myself back. Before I do anything with this exercise, we need to take a breath in. Through the nose, you'll see my rib cage here rise, a breath out through the mouth, and let everything relax. That will tilt my pelvis upwards slightly in a posterior tilt, which is the complete opposite motion of what we're seeing in that setup posture. So I'm nice and flat here through the lower back on the ground. I can feel the pelvis is tilted a little bit towards me, and I can still speak, I can still relax normally. Now, if you're new to this exercise, I recommend you place your hands on the ground. Once you've done that, if you're feeling that's not much of a challenge, you can place the hands up into this position here. We'll start down on the ground. So I'm going to take that breath in, out, and on my breath out, I'm just going to lift the hips 2 to 3 inches here off the ground. So you can see there's enough clearance between me and the mat. You can see a bit of daylight. I'm going to hold it for 5 seconds or so. This roller will feel quite tight, and then I'm going to drop all the way down. So we're going to repeat that motion. Now, as you lift up into this bridge position here, you should feel the hamstrings working. You should feel that contraction, maybe a little bit in the glutes, but you're still in this tucked position of the pelvis here. It's the hamstrings that we want to work to pull that pelvis back into a neutral position that we can then use at setup. I recommend we do about 10 to 12 reps of this exercise, just controlling everything nice and smooth. If you need to reset yourself, you're not sure where your feet are, just have a little pause, just check where they've gone to, make sure they're nice and straight, make sure you're still on this 90-degree angle here, and then you've got that bridge. So after we've practiced that exercise, the last thing to do is put this in perspective within the golf swing. So if we set up again down the line, what we're looking for is to not stick the butt out like this, as we mentioned at the start, with this tilt of the pelvis and all this pressure on the lower spine. What we want to do is move into a hinge position. And all that is the pelvis and the hips sitting backwards, not tilting, and tilting the tailbone out. So setting up to the ball, and all you're going to do is just gently shift the hips very slightly back. It's a very subtle movement, but you can see here there was very limited tilt. So I haven't gone into this excessive duck butt position with all that pressure that we were talking about. So this is something to practice here at the driving range, in your golf lessons, and just get familiar with that setup position. You'll know if you're doing it correctly, there's a big difference physically between how it feels. And like any golf swing change, it will feel really strange to begin with, and something that takes time and practice in order to get used to. But it's definitely worth it to take away that lower back pain, to make sure that you practice that exercise, to put yourself physically in a much better position than you currently are. And not only that, you're avoiding injury, you're definitely going to hit the ball further in the long run because your body's just in a better position to do so. If you enjoyed this video, definitely hit the thumbs up for a like. Subscribe so you can see all the content that I've got on this channel. And don't forget to come back next time for loads more golf fitness.